Qualdor's body. He sat on the bed with his back to the wall, wondering where he could run to in the middle of darkness, when he didn't even know where he was. Through the window he contemplated the moon that was so beautiful and serene. He let the stars twinkling bright in a dark night sky distract his mind while he marveled at these beautiful sights. The beauty before him made him see Sunny's lovely face smiling above him. Soon his weariness won him over, and he fell asleep, basked in moonlight. Certainly this must be Atlantic, he thought while half asleep. Then just as quickly he turned towards a door and whispered, "This can't be Atlantic." The women, the confusion, the moonlight. He tossed and turned between dreams and reality until finally succumbing to a deep sleep. From the outside of his room, he heard pots and pans clanging while plates slammed on top of the table. The morning ritual startled him up from bed. One of the ladies led him out of his room to the bathroom and directed him to sit at the table once he was done washing up. The dark lady with dark black eyes knocked on the bathroom door and asked him if he was okay. He replied he was all right, and soon after he walked out of the bathroom and sat at the breakfast table. Towards the end of the breakfast, the three large men got up from the table to prepare their rifles and ammunition. "Let's go, boy," one of them ordered. He got up slowly, walked behind them towards the door. Upon exiting the cabin, he was assaulted by the sight of lifeless animals, their dead eyes fixed directly on him. "That's what we're going to kill today, boy," another man said humorously, causing his friends to chuckle. They walked into the woods. Qualdor's heart was beating nervously as he got deeper into the forest. His anxiety was disturbed when a rifle tapped him on the shoulder. He turned suddenly to see a rabbit running across with great speed. "What a beautiful animal," Qualdor acknowledged as he watched a man aim his rifle at the same innocent creature. He noticed the skill with which the brute handled the rifle before it let out an obnoxious roar. Now the rabbit was still and lifeless. The men heard rustling behind them and turned to face what they were not aware of earlier. The rabbit was not speeding away because it caught sight of them. It was trying to run away from a hungry gray wolf. Soon a slow, deep growl reverberated against the trees and caused the three men to turn hurriedly in all directions. "What is that?" asked one of the men in a quivering voice. "Look!" exclaimed the other man, pointing to a wolf. The wolf snarled at them, displaying his fierce, razor-sharp teeth, almost daring the men to dart for the dead rabbit. "Let's get him!" the men exclaimed as they cracked their high-powered rifles and hastily shot at the fierce animal. Their shots missed the wolf, but the force of the bullets flying by him caused the creature to fall on his knees. The gray wolf's fur stiffened fully around his body until every single hair was standing on edge. It let out a vicious growl and stood over the dead rabbit. Again the men cocked their rifles back and this time aimed the weapons as they advanced forward towards the wild beast. Their advance caused the animal to run off quickly. "Let's get him!" shouted the men as they ran behind the wolf and let off another round of shots. Qualdor, caught in the excitement, ran fiercely behind them, attempting to keep up with the hunters. As the hunters were running and reloading, one of them cried out, "Let's corner him at that abandoned cabin over there." "Yeah, all right," his friend shouted in return. The three men ran more intently than the animal. They shot rounds from their weapons in such a way that kept the great animal running in the direction they wanted it to. Gray Predator looked back to assess their stride and curled his snout at them, displaying his scissor-like teeth. Just as the hunters wanted, the wolf turned his head forward in time to find himself in a straight course towards the wall of an abandoned cabin. The animal jumped violently upwards to avoid crashing into the wall and lashed his huge front paws above his head while stretching to grab the roof of the house. The front paw slipped off the cabin's roof, and the animal fell heavily on its back. The mighty hunter lifted his massive body from the ground and raised his head to howl a battle cry into the air. The men snapped their high-powered rifles into firing mode and aimed them at the creature while it darted towards the only human without a weapon. Breathing out of control, Qualler braced himself against a large tree. As soon as the animal jumped from the ground, rounds of ammunition fired from the high-powered rifles confiscated the predator's life while he soared through the air. The animal's dead carcass pierced a sharp branch of the same tree Qualler was leaning against to confront the animal. Its dead body laid over Qualler's head and shoulders like an unintended prize. Feeling suffocated by the stench of the dead animal's raw and bleeding carcass penetrating his mouth and nostrils, Qualler hysterically fought out from beneath its limp body. Shock ran through Qualler's body as he moved away from the dead animal dangling in the tree. Realizing what had just taken place, Qualler let out a thundering roar. He looked sternly at the wolf pinned to the tree, its teeth buried into the wood. Certainly the animal was savage, but what bothered him most was the barbaric act that led to so many bullets pinning this lifeless body to a tree. Qualler finally turned around to confront the men. He was startled by the same rifle pointed right between his eyes. "Now it's your turn, boy," laughed one of the big men, urged on by his chuckling companions. All except Qualler fell into hysterical laughter. His face became disfigured with an anger that overwhelmed him. Like a wolf, Qualler's face took on the viciousness of the dead predator, and he emitted a growl from deep within his throat. He randomly snatched one of the high-powered rifles and began swinging the butt of the instrument violently at each of the hunters. His erratic movement struck one of the men on the arm, causing him to drop his weapon. The other brute took a hit to his ear that left him disoriented. The third man reeled backwards and stumbled over some bushes after being struck on the forehead. The first man to feel Qualler's wrath scurried around in a frenzy, searching for his rifle, but was unable to find it. He heard Qualler growl once more and looked over to see him imitating their hand play on the rifle. Immediately, the bully scrambled to pick up his fellow hunters and ran off before the crazed man unleashed any further damage on them. "This is not Atlantic," Qualler shouted towards the direction of the retreating hunters. "This is not our home," he yelled violently as he pointed the rifle at the men running away. Completely irrational because of the experiences that he had endured, Qualler pointed the rifle into the air and screamed at the top of his voice, "This is not Atlantic!" As if in slow motion, he turned around and ran towards the mountains that were straight ahead. Once he reached them, he began a frantic climb to the top. Perhaps he was climbing towards the peaceful moon and stars he admired the night before. Or possibly, he hoped to escape the savage place which was supposed to be his new home. Qualler's anger and confusion fueled his muscles and fed his stamina to endure the climb. Like the predator he vindicated, Qualler saw himself as a wolf. Saliva seeped through his clenched teeth like water, draining onto his chin and shirt. During his fierce ascension, a barrage of pictures violently ran through his mind. The wolf's hair standing on end as he prepared to defend himself, the men laughing and pointing their rifles at him, the wolf's dead body hung in a tree. The more Qualler remembered, the faster he moved up the mountain. Finally, he reached the top. While still on his knees at the summit of the huge mountain, he cupped his hands around his lips and screamed, "This is not Atlantic! This is not Atlantic!" Louder and louder the words belted out of his heaving chest, as if perhaps that phrase justified everything he had been through. "This is not Atlantic!" he exclaimed as he stood upright, with both of his arms stretched upwards and one hand clutching the rifle held high in the air.